Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Uber to the Pits podcast. I'm your host, Chris Emery, and it's a wet one here in Los Angeles today. But that's okay because you're listening to the podcast. This week's guest is David and Dylan Murry. David is a long-time race car driver with IMSA, raced with Porsches, other brands, 24-hour winner, and all-around nice guy. Now his son is also racing in IMSA, started out doing some stock car stuff, karting. We'll get into their history as well and talk about the father-son experience, how it's been, what it's like, living through it yourself and now getting to watch your son do it, and vice versa, with the son growing up watching dad do it and now getting to live with it with his dad. They actually did a couple races where they got to pair up with each other last year, so we'll talk about that as well. So it's going to be an interesting show. Because I didn't get a show up last week, we are going to have two shows this week. We're going to have the one we recorded last week that I was trying some new software with, so hopefully that one turns out okay. So on top of that, I hope you guys enjoy the interview with David and Dylan Murry. And on to other things. Don't forget to go visit our partner, Intrinsic Products. That's INTRINSIC products.com to go for your dash cam and action cam needs. And when you use the code Uber to the Pits, you get 10% off your purchase. So the rates are already great. The products are HD and 4K, so check them out. Again, it's intrinsicproducts.com, Uber to the Pits. Let's go green. All right, David and Dylan Murry, thank you for joining me on the Uber to the Pits podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
So, David, I'm going to start with you. Give me a little bit of history about what got you into motorsports and a little bit about your career, and then we'll transition into Dylan's career a little bit.
All right. Back when the Earth was still cooling, we hadn't even invented wooden wheels yet, but
so you're out there with the hammer and chisel.
Yeah, the chisel. You see that commercial with the guy chiseling the toilet paper? That's me. It was one of those things that I just, when I was younger, even go-karts and stuff, I never really had a go-kart to race, but had a Sears Craftsman go-kart, wherever, and I'd drive that around. And then had a mini bike, and then finally got a dirt bike. And so I always loved doing stuff and driving fast. Knew I wanted to race, had no clue how to do it or where or anything like that. So, of course, when I turned 16, my parents gave me the car they bought brand new, and in 1973 they bought a new 73 Ford Torino, and I had the 67 Chevy Bel Air four-door. So probably drove that around the street a little faster than I should have. Knew it's what I wanted to do. And so when I worked for GMAC, the guys there were, we're going to the Road Atlanta for the race. I went, what, where, when, how? And as soon as I did that, I found out when and where. I went for the race. It was a Camel GT, IMSA Camel GT. And I still remember the day, driving in, going up the hill and watching the cars come down. We got there just as the pace lap was on its way, and they were getting ready to take the green flag after the bridge at turn 11. And I just remember the hair stood up on the back of my neck when I heard the cars, and it just really solidified everything I knew. And I never missed a race, an IMSA race or an SCCA race there, Formula runoffs race, until I started racing myself and had to be somewhere else. And so just the passion, the love for it, I couldn't get enough of it. Then I went to Skip Barber and started teaching there. And I went to all the IMSA races and slept in my car after I worked two jobs first and ran Formula Ford for 4 years. Lucky enough, from the day I bought a car, starting to find sponsorship, got Domino's Pizza and Coca-Cola. My 5th year, I ran for them in Spec Racer, which was back then called Sport Renault. Had a great season, got more exposure than IndyCar per dollar, won the championship, a whole bit. And they went away and they quit racing. So I went to every IMSA race after that, slept in my car, begged for rides. Hey, can I drive your car?
Helmet in hand.
No? Okay, beat it. So long story short, 2 years of sleep in my car, begging for rides. Got a couple of things. Finally, one of my students at Skip Barber said, come race with me. We did. And then that just slowly trickled into more and more until I got to the point where Doc Bundy had me drive the Lotus with him when he got Lotus to go in as a factory deal. So it was a Lotus Esprit. We ran supercar. ran with him for a year, in addition to running a 944, 968 in the Firehawk Series, won the championship in that. And then Porsche hired me to do the World Challenge as a factory deal there. And then that's kind of the beginning of my factory involvement in Lotus and the Porsche. And I drove for BMW for the factory at Petit in the V8 car. So all those things, one thing to another, but it was just a passion that almost drove me insane, because you'd rather race than eat or breathe, right?
Yep.
And I know there's a lot of folks that can relate to that.
Absolutely.
And I finally realized that, just because you want it and you have to have it, doesn't mean it's going to happen. So I had a semi-nervous breakdown over the winter and said, okay, I'm not going to let it ruin my life. And then slowly the desperation went away, and slowly things started happening. So once I did that, then I had, one thing after the other, and I couldn't. I mean, sure, you always want to do more than you did, but I look back now and go, I had a pretty good career, did a lot of fun stuff. And so now it's a matter of, it was a perfect timing for me to kind of wind down my career just at the time that Dylan was coming on. He had been doing stuff since he was born. I'll let him tell you his story, but it was a good transition from me to him at that point.
So Dylan, do you remember the first race you got to attend?
Yes, I do, actually. So it's actually, my dad was talking about going to Petit Le Mans, and that was his first race that he watched, and that exact same effect happened to me. I go in, and if any of you guys have ever been to Road Atlanta, you know exactly what we're talking about. We are, you go in the track, and the first thing that you see is that downhill turn 11 going down to turn 12, and it is just so cool to be able to go into that track and see the cars. Now, I didn't go in right when they were taking the green flag. I went in a couple of days early, and we actually we were there for practice and stuff. So it's just cars going down. But that effect of going to Petit Le Mans at Road Atlanta is just for the first time. And I was up at Road Atlanta last weekend, and I brought one of my friends up there. He's never been to a racetrack before, and oddly enough, he had the exact same effect on him. He absolutely loved it. But no, it's that first time that you ever go to a racetrack that me and my dad, we both knew, like, holy cow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
It's passion or it's not.
And Road Atlanta is one of those, 5 tracks, excuse the dog in the background, that has that effect on people. It's like Road Atlanta, Road America, Watkins Glen, Lime Rock, and Laguna Seca.
We call those the pre-lawyer tracks.
Exactly. Laguna Seca got a little bit of the lawyers involved when it came to Moto, when they brought MotoGP back in the early 2000s, but still.
Yeah. Just being a fun fact, though. I like that. I went there for the first time last year, and I never been. I drove it on iRacing on the SimCraft simulators. But when I go there, it was I really liked it. Some people I know aren't too crazy about it. But I picture it as like, when you go play putt-putt, it's on a putt-putt course. Laguna is that one with the big windmill, and you got to shoot the golf ball through under the windmill and stuff like that. That's what I love. I think it's awesome. I think it's just absolutely so much fun going down the corkscrew. I look forward to it every year now.
No, Laguna is one of those tracks, and it's funny. I've been to Laguna so many times. I've been around that track on a bicycle, a motorcycle, various different race cars, and I actually did it even in a go-kart. But the craziest ride was the Skip Barber Sprinter van going down the corkscrew filled with students.
As long as Bruce McGinnis wasn't driving.
No, I think it was Randy Buck.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's some incredible racetracks, and each one has its own story. Laguna, to me, is the track itself is kind of neat with the elevation change. And I mean, the track doesn't have a lot of grip, but it's challenging, and the area is fantastic. You get that whole coast, the Monterey, Carmel, and the water, and it's just such a great atmosphere. It's one I'll have to commit my wife to come to.
Except for when you get fogged out in the morning.
That's right.
Yeah. I learned not to fly out in the morning.
Exactly. So, David, now that Dylan's kind of, so Dylan, after watching the track, what was your transition into racing?
So I started after that when I was 5 years old. We went to an indoor go-karting place called Andretti in North Georgia. And I just went with my friends a couple times. We drove around the small little kiddie track doing 10, 15 miles an hour. That's about it. And then I did the Pro Cup karting camp there. So at Andretti, you had to be 16 years old to drive on the adult track. And obviously at 5 years old, I'm far from that. So I ended up doing the pro karting camp there for a week, and then actually it turned out into doing it like 10 times. So I did that, and then I was able to drive on the big track, and then I started in the league there when I was 8 years old. And then I moved into outdoor karting. And actually the story on that one is we were at Barnesville. It's actually called Lamar County Speedway. And that is actually where a lot of people got their start. I know Danica Patrick, Tony Stewart, a bunch of very successful racers came from Barnesville. And so we were there watching some of my friends race. And I mind you, I was still 9 years old at this time. And I'm watching the go-karts go around. It was a night race. And we get there, we're watching the go-karts go around. They all got their neon lights, the blue, the green, red lights on at night. And I'm watching them go by. And I just wanted to be out there so bad. I just watched them. And I got to the point where actually I couldn't even watch the karts anymore. I went back and I sat in the car for the rest of the time because I wanted to be out there so bad. So we get back after that was over, after that terrible night was over, watching everybody else drive and I'm not. And I asked my dad if I could get a go-kart. He's like, oh, yeah, no, we'll see. And I kept asking him. He's like, all right, I'll make you a deal. You can do 6 months of chores with no pay, no benefits, no nothing, right? And you have to do whatever I say. If you want me to rub my feet, I got to rub his feet. I never ended up rubbing his feet, so I went. I'm like, okay, you got a deal, man. 6 months of anything that you asked me to do. After 6 months of continuously asking him every day if the 6 months is up, I finally was able to get my first go-kart, and we actually bought that from Chip Robinson's son, Skylar Robinson, and we went and did a couple races at Barnesville. I remember getting my first trophy, my first third place trophy. I was over the moon about that. And then you start to get the taste of winning, and then you want to win more and more. We went on to start doing national go-karts, started doing Legends cars after that. That was kind of my first step into a real car. And then kind of went into the NASCAR route with late models, NASCAR K&N. And then now this year, in the past 3 years now, I've been doing mostly sports car racing. But yeah, that one day at Barnesville.
Yeah. Chris, let me tell you this real quick. When he was asking that, can I get a go-kart? And I'm going, well, let's just see. Outwards I'm going, I don't know, we'll see. Inside I'm going, yes. Because I've been waiting for him to ask that, get that interest in wanting to race since he was born.
Yeah.
But it had to be his passion and decision, not mine.
See, it is funny because my son's 5 years old now. And it was probably about 8 months ago. He's like, all right, Dad, I'm ready to start learning how to drive a go-kart. I'm all super ecstatic, excited. The wife's like, no. But it's funny because, my heyday of car racing, really what got me into it was, again, the Camel IMSA GTP races. Being able to hang around with Chris Cord, Willie T. Ribbs, and Dennis Aussie in the AAR pits. Yeah. And then, watching that series grow into the prototype. So I have a model of a Ferrari 333 SP.
Raced against those.
That sits on my shelf. And so my son's favorite color is red. And he's like, Dad, which car is that? I go, it's the Ferrari 333 SP. And a couple weeks ago, we're out at lunch. My dad's in town from Oregon, and my uncle's there. And he shows my son a picture of the Ferrari 333 SP on his phone. He goes, do you know what car that is? He goes, it's a Ferrari. So, I'm all ecstatic. I'm just waiting for him to get a little bit more of the coordination down before I go stick him in a cart. But, I'm like you. I'm all ecstatic, ready to go. Watch his growth with it. I'm sure after day 2 of the 6 months, Dylan was asking, has it been 6 months yet?
Every day, starting that night. But, it's one of those things that, Chris, you can get it, and everybody that's listening has to get it. your whole dream is that when you have kids, they're going to want to share your passion. And for me to have the passion I've got so strong, it's been my whole life for 40 years plus before that, now to have my son to do that and to share that together. And I mean, I know he likes it, but I know I like it a lot more than he does but there's nothing better than that. You can't ask for it because you're in the same world, and it's like he gets it, and I know it's got to be good for him to be able to talk to somebody, to me, that's okay. And he knows I understand because I've been there.
No, absolutely.
There's just nothing better than that. And like I said, when your son starts racing, you're going to be doing stuff with him, co-driving with him, and go-kart race, long races and stuff. It's just, there's nothing better.
Now, Dylan, did you have any other interests like, football, baseball, basketball?
Yeah, I played a little bit of t-ball and soccer when I was really young. But really two sports that really interest me now are golf and ice hockey. I played ice hockey in high school. I absolutely sucked at it. It was terrible. Never hired me as an NHL player.
So you were like me. You like to cost our parents a lot of money. Go-karting, ice hockey.
Yeah.
I played hockey as well, but I also played center. But on top of that, I also played goalie.
Oh, really?
Wow. So it's 2 sets of pads, 2 sets of skates, different helmets, different sticks.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I just played left defense.
Yeah.
Well, and he liked it to the point where it was great fun, but it wasn't his life calling. It's like,
exactly.
And even said that. So, I really enjoy this, but it's not everything. And you're right as far as the cost. I mean, get ready to get a crowbar for your wallet because it's going to be opened.
Baseball now.
We had, obviously we had to pay for the go-karts and the Legends cars and stuff like that and help a little bit in the Legends. But then it got to a point where, a mere mortal like me can't afford where he's moved to.
Yeah.
And that's where we've been so lucky. We've been, we raised some money from GoFundMe to do his K&N race. And, he had a lot of people believe in him as long as he's doing well. And every time I gave him an opportunity from finding dollars to run, he would take advantage of it and do really well. And so that allowed, more people to want to be involved. And then we're trying to do some NASCAR stuff, put effort in that. And he'd come to all of my track days and the things that I was at, my races, to meet all those people. And sure enough, guy Jim Cox that I was helping coach, asked Dylan to drive his car. And actually, Jim and I were going to drive the season together year before last in the Porsche with BGB for the half season. And so we went to Daytona for the Roar. And he goes, well, what about Dylan? Because Dylan had driven his car for, a couple laps at a time in my chest days or whatever else.
Yeah.
I'm like, that'd be fantastic. He said, well, I've never really driven my car in anger. I'm like, well, you got to give him a few laps. And so he did, came into the Roar. He did a really good job. And another great story was after the weekend, we came outside after one of the sessions, and we looked at the data. And he was quicker than me through turn one and whatever. So I walked away from the bathroom, came back, and I saw him on the phone, all smiles and talking to someone on the phone, all laughing. And I said, oh, you called Mom, tell you you're faster than me in turn one? He goes, yeah, turn 3, 4, 5, too. And so pretty proud moment for me, for him to have done that. And then now he's done a really good job on his own. And it's just, there's something special about watching him, from go-karts to where he's at today. And there's a picture, I don't know if we'll do this in the podcast, but you can see, check this picture out. Whoops.
Oh, wow.
Where's that? There we go. That's me looking at him for the go-karts, right?
Yeah.
And so you can imagine, well, look at that, and then go watch him, win a P3 race or win a Michelin Challenge race that's got the likes of Billy Arberlin and, Trent Hidman, all these guys that are, fantastic racers. And he's out there driving away from them, or at least staying in front of them. It's, factory drivers and everything else. It's pretty neat to see that from where he started from. And granted, it's been a team effort, and that's what makes it rewarding because obviously given the opportunities, but if he didn't take advantage of it, he could, it wouldn't work either.
No, exactly. And I remember the first time I met Dylan was at Barber Motorsports Park. And I'm walking around with a kangaroo and a little, like a purple pouch.
Yeah.
And everyone thought I had like a snake or something until this kangaroo head pops out. And I remember that's when
my wife remembers that too.
you're talking about, getting your dollars for the K&N series and, really working for the NASCAR stuff. So, you did the few K&N NASCAR series stuff. Is that something that still interests you, or is it more
Absolutely.
now just straight towards sports cars?
No, absolutely. I'm trying. I want to get the most diversity of driving that I can possibly get in my career. I don't want to be labeled solely as a road course driver. At the same time, I don't want to be labeled solely as an oval driver. I want to be that guy that can do everything from endurance racing to NASCAR to open wheel IndyCar, whatever it is. So that way, whatever opportunity comes my way, I'm able to take up on it and adapt to the car and the type of track fairly quickly and everything like that. That's one thing that we've always kind of done is, I grew up on go-karts on road courses, and then I did Legends cars on ovals, followed by late models on ovals, and then K&N and sports car on road courses. So it's really been a huge mix of diversity of cars for me. And I think that's really helped me to become a better driver overall, too.
On that line, the reason for that is a big part of it is when I was racing, doing sports car, I want to go Formula One, Indy cars before that. And so sports car. And NASCAR was not very big.
Yeah.
And IndyCar was huge. So then as I kept progressing, then all of a sudden IndyCar declined and NASCAR grew like crazy. So when you go that direction, you go, yeah, where were you before? And so, where's your oval experience, all these other things. And then I've seen other people, somebody drove the Panos with Robertsons and struggled with, they left foot brake and they couldn't right foot brake, and the team wanted the right foot brake. So my takeaway from all of that was he needed to learn how to do everything. So whatever happened, he could do it.
He pretty much gave a true racer answer. I want to be diversified in everything because I don't want to, shoo away any opportunity that comes
Absolutely.
up. Because, as you know and I know, the opportunity he has right now with Mercedes could be gone at the end of the year because, sponsorship, or just the car's like, we're not competitive anymore. We don't want to do it. Right. So, this way it at least gives you the opportunity to drive anything and everything.
Yeah, right. And so that's why, like I said, the oval experience, the road course experience, the shifting from H pattern to sequential to paddle shift,
right foot braking,
left, whatever it is, especially half the kids his age now have never even seen an H pattern. They don't know what it is.
H pattern?
Exactly, right? What's an H pattern? No clue.
Well, just think, I'm right at that transition because I'm 38, where a lot of people my age don't even know what 3 on the tree is.
Right. We had a Nova, Chevy Nova with that.
Yeah. So Dylan, you're both David and Dylan. You guys were talking about racing at Daytona a couple years ago, and I know you guys got the opportunity to run together. David, first, for your perspective, what was it like being able to share a car with your son? Being able to watch his growth from day one to that moment.
It was really cool. To actually, sit in the same seat, change drivers together and things like that. I wish we had a better competitive effort so that we could have a chance to win. I would really like to have, won some car races with him. We've done a lot of go-kart races together, endurance races, and we won a bunch of them. I think we won with a couple other guys. We won like 5 races in a row at that lovable go-kart place in Atlanta, and that they do before Petite and New Year's Eve and some other places. But for us to do cars, it was really special to be able to drive together. But again, the car wasn't where we weren't as competitive as I'd like to be.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot more fun, I think. But at the same time, the more time goes by, it's like, we drove a Porsche together and we drove a P3 car together. So that was pretty cool.
So Dylan, on to you now. What was it like being able to share a car with, the person that helped support you, teach you, kind of groom you into the racer, and now you get to share a car with them?
No, it was really something special. I mean, and that was my first time in IMSA or sports car racing or anything. So it was like the whole package, right? I get to be on track with other professional drivers at the same time that I'm co-driving with my dad in a professional race. So it was and that was my first time driving at the high banks at Daytona too. It was really something just very special, that, you know, I hope that we can do that again. We, like I said, we've done it twice in professional racing. And that was, honestly, those were the two most fun races of my life. And it's just so cool to be able to see my dad coming into pit lane and like, okay, now he's going to hand the car over to me and we're going to go out and try to finish the best we can. It's really something really cool. I mean, driving with somebody like a good friend or somebody like that is awesome, but it's not as awesome as driving with your dad.
Yeah. Now, you know, I know that your dad puts on his track days and coaching events and stuff like that. What type of dad/coach was he? Now, I want this to be a no holds bar. Let everything out.
Yeah.
You know, don't worry. You have full immunity. You know, even though he's sitting right next to you.
Yeah, he does not have the little league dad syndrome. That's my mom that has that part. Very true. Very true. No, he's a very good teacher, especially in driving and everything. And to be able to be around him all the time to learn. And, you know, like last year at Daytona when we were driving with Riley Motorsports and Jerome Bleekemolen was co-driving with us. And obviously you guys probably know who Jerome is. He's absolutely phenomenal driver. And that was my first time driving with a pro like him, other than my dad. And we get back and after the roar, my lap time was very close to Jerome's, maybe a hundredth faster or something like that. But we get back and Jerome was faster than me all the way up to turn 5, and then I just barely gained on him coming out of the exit of turn 6. And if I were to sit there and just look at the data myself and the video myself, I couldn't tell you what we were doing different, because I mean you got to think about, we're talking about hundredths of a second. Yeah. But now to have my dad that's done it even longer than Jerome has, really helped to accelerate the learning curve. And it's just little things like that, you know, having him around for times like that, that, you know, honestly, when you're co-driving with another pro, you want to be fastest in every single corner, and that's not always how it works out. But my dad helps me to be able to look at data and video and say, oh, this is what you could have done different. This is what you could have done. And same thing going back to Road America last year. You know, I think that's the last thing that any driver can work up to is racecraft, trying to learn how to pass people. And that's something that you can't really teach. It's just something that time happens. And I caught this one guy at Road America, and it took me several laps to get around him. And, you know, because these guys are really good racers. And we get back and we look at the video, and my dad says, oh, you could have just gone around on the outside here or something like that. And so learning stuff like that. So now that cuts the learning curve quite a bit.
One thing I like to pick up with what you're just saying is that you did show a lot of patience, though, waiting those few laps. And from what I've seen with a lot of younger drivers, a lot of incidents happen is they'll see a gap that they think they could get to, not being patient, setting up the pass, and then all of a sudden you're wrecking a bunch of people.
Yeah, and I think that's honestly what kind of separates me from a lot of the other drivers that are my age, or even slightly older, is I have the championship mentality. A lot of these other guys have just the short-term kind of position.
Give me now.
Yeah, give me now. Like, you know, this year I want to win the championship. If we can win races, that's great, but I'm a championship guy, and that's honestly just about all that I care about. You know, I'm going to try everything that I can to be able to win the race, but I'm not going to, you know, crash the car on the last lap in second place trying to catch the guy that's 500 yards ahead of me, right? But I think that's, you know, like you were saying, it's the patience and the kind of mentality that I have that sets me up more for championships as opposed to just give me now.
Now, do you get that championship mentality by your dad, like standing over you at night, holding up his championship trophies, going, see what I got, see what I got. You gotta, you know,
right.
You're going to catch up.
That's right. Exactly. We got it painted on my ceiling, so every morning when I wake up, I see it.
Well, I still remember the Andretti go-kart indoor. he was running that year. And they had, really close races every race. And there's, they're always in a pack. And go back and forth, and you didn't pick your car. Well, the last race, he had to have not even a great finish, just somewhere he would have won the championship. So he's out there running around, and the throttle cables is frayed, and he gets about half throttle. He's going really slow. And he's coming by the straight as we're there, jerking the wheel back and forth like he's so mad. Remember, he's only 5 years old, 6 years old. And so mad, and fortunately he didn't spin himself out. Got done, and I said, you think about that. You won the championship. You could have just thrown it away. So just trying things like that to let him understand it's the big picture, and you can't just get mad for one thing and forget the rest. What else is what else matters to the whole big picture? And when people look back on a year or their career, it's like, well, yeah, okay, how many races did you win? Yeah, great. How many championships did you win? And that's what really matters, and so that's what we've been focused on since he was 5.
Exactly, and I mean, that's kind of the mentality in all sports. You look at Dan Marino, who is one of the greatest quarterbacks ever to never win a Super Bowl.
Right.
Jim Kelly, same thing. So.
Right. Yeah, and so, that's why we had a kid in go-karts. They would always, he'd get mad because he couldn't pass Dylan. So even if the checker flag, Dylan would win, and after, in the back where he couldn't see him, the guy hit Dylan, knock him off the track. And you're like, really? And so that's where Little League mom wants to, okay, you take him out, and she wants to go smack the guy and stuff like that. Yeah. Whereas I'm like, think big picture. You won the race, you won the championship. Don't let that stuff bother you.
No.
And that's where you get some of these guys. I mean, I hate to say it, but I remember Tony Stewart one year, from what I heard, didn't make the chase, but he was too busy trying to retaliate on drivers that made him mad during the season that he didn't even get the points to go to the champion to the.
Yeah, I was going to say save that stuff for Spec Miata and NASCAR.
Right.
So, Dylan, this year you're racing in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Cup Series.
Yes, IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge.
There you go. And then you're doing that in a Mercedes GT4.
That's right.
How do you enjoy that car?
That car is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, Mercedes did such a great job designing their GT4 cars. I've never driven their GT3 car, but I hear it's very similar to the GT4. And if it is, then that means that car is just as good because, I mean, you can get into the Mercedes and just absolutely turn a killer lap time, and it doesn't even feel like you're trying. I mean, the Mercedes really is a very nice handling car, very powerful. It's got great torque, and we have an advantage with the turbos a little bit, especially when we go to like higher altitude tracks and everything. It really is an immaculate car. I compliment them every time that I see them on that car because it's really, they've done a terrific job designing it, and that's why they've won the championship 2 years ago and the manufacturer's championship last year. Their results are proven.
Yeah. Now, you've done some double duty stints already at your young age.
Yes.
Going from a GT4 car to the P3 car.
Mm-hmm.
And then, wasn't there a weekend last year where you actually had to be at 2 different tracks on the same weekend?
Yeah. That was pretty tiring. That was a tiring weekend. We were actually, so for that weekend, I was racing the Wins Mercedes at Road America for Riley Motorsports. At the same time, I was racing the Jefferson Pitts Racing Ford Fusion at the NASCAR Watkins Glen K&N race. And so we had practice on Thursday at Road America in the Mercedes, followed by practice, qualifying, and race on Friday at Watkins Glen in NASCAR, followed by the race on Saturday at Road America in the Mercedes. So I had to because I was going to miss Friday at Road America, my co-driver did most of that, Jim Cox. He did most of Friday. So I got basically all of Thursday to drive the Mercedes, which was total about an hour and a half, 2 hours of drive time. And then going into, we had to fly that night over to Watkins Glen. We got to the place we were staying at midnight, 1 a.m. Had to wake up at, I think it was like, 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning the next day. So got a couple hours of sleep, go out, practice, qualify, race the NASCAR race, immediately go back to the airport, fly back over. And it was like a 3, maybe 4 hour flight because we had to do a little prop plane and then go back to Road America.
First time he saw the stock car was that morning of the race.
Oh, wow.
Never seen it before, never sat in it.
Yeah. And not only that, but you also picked two of the very easiest tracks in the world to drive.
Yeah, that's right. Very, very easy tracks to drive. No, those two tracks are absolutely incredible. I think I like Road America more just because of the cheese that they have there. But no,
Valley cheese.
Yeah, so we always get lots of cheese when we go to Road America. I think last time we walked out with like $70-$80 worth of cheese. But totally worth it. But yeah, that was a crazy weekend. A couple hours of sleep the entire weekend, driving. I think by the time we crossed over with the plane and all the miles that I drove on the track, it was like 4,000 miles or something crazy like that in 3 days.
Now, I want to touch something a little bit with the younger drivers, because you're going from, luckily both cars are front engine rear wheel drive, but you're going with the car with a lot of aero with the GT4.
Yep.
To a big box, which actually, a lot of people don't realize how much aero a NASCAR actually has.
Mm-hmm.
But, big brute, V8 versus, turbocharged V8 aero nimble car. How was the transition going, especially with very little sleep? Because I want people to really understand how diverse of a driver you have to be to try to really be anything in the industry.
Yeah. It was really difficult. More difficult going from the Mercedes to the NASCAR. Not because, so the NASCAR has a little bit more power. It's a bunch heavier, and nowhere near the amount of grip, like you were saying, as the Mercedes. So the cars are basically opposite. And when we were racing the Mercedes at Watkins Glen earlier in the year, going into turn 1 at Watkins Glen in the Mercedes, we were braking at the, I think, 250 marker, maybe 200 marker. And then I go back for the K&N car, and the furthest brake marker back that they have is the 400 marker. And I'm braking before that.
Too late.
That's too late. I go out there in the NASCAR because I'm fresh off the Mercedes at Road America. I'm thinking, this is going to be a super stiff car, lots of grip, man, just more power, No, it's completely different. The brakes are the size of your grandma's cookie, and you go out there, and I'm braking at way before the 400 marker.
Yeah, because like you said, the brakes are going from a carbon ceramic to a steel, 12-inch.
And you can't. And so I'm going out, and I start braking at where basically the 600 marker would be, and then I work it out to the where the 500 would be, and I try to go down to the 400. I keep locking up the brakes. I'm thinking, I got too much front brake bias or something like that. I keep trying to mess with the brake bias. I'm thinking, man, everybody else has got to be braking so much later than me. I don't know what's going on. And then, a couple laps later, my spotter for turn 1 comes on the radio, and he says, yeah, Dylan, you're braking a little bit later than everybody else. Maybe try to back your brake point up a little bit. I'm like, I already did. I'm trying to brake later. So I ended up braking. It must have been 150, 200 yards before I would have in the Mercedes. And that's what took the most time to get used to, was just the lack of braking capabilities, followed by the excessive horsepower. So you go into the corner and you can't pull very many G-forces going in, but then you got all that 650 horsepower underneath the hood coming out of the corner, and it's like the complete opposite effect. Yeah. And it, like I said, it took a while to get used to that. And then going back to the Mercedes on Saturday, that took a little time to get rid of the NASCAR, because NASCAR is all about momentum. How much momentum can you carry through the corner? You can't, if you slow the car down too much, your run is done. And going back into the Mercedes, my first time back in the Mercedes was in the race. Like we did a hot pit stop, and I wasn't back in the car until the race was already an hour into the race. And so I have to go right then and there. And it took me a couple laps, I'm going to be honest, to transition back to a stiffer setup, more aero, a lot better braking capability, and not as much power. So it took a couple laps, but once I kind of got that stock car mentality out of my mind again and back into the sports car mentality, it was okay.
How long has it been since you've been in a stock car before?
It was probably a year or 2 years since I've been in a stock car.
But it was also you coming to, excuse me, and adapting to what the cars gave you. You
Right.
You can't go in and say, hey, I need the car to do this or I need the car to do that, because, especially with the Mercedes and NASCAR, sometimes you're required to be within a certain spec range.
Right.
And I bring that up because I remember sitting in a driver's meeting. David was there. This is when the Club Sports, the GT4 Club Sports first got released, and people were complaining about the suspension. And they're like, well, I want to be able to do this, I want to be able to do that. Well, it's like, okay, you could adjust the car for your driving, but you're taking it out of spec of what it's supposed to be in a spec series. But if you ever have to get into another car, they're not just going to switch the car to fit your driving, because they're going to take away what the car can actually do. So mentally, you have to be able to adapt to the car.
Right.
Yeah, and then of course the car, the stock car, when we got there, they had changed the construction of the tire, and so this team, who's a fantastic road course team, all of a sudden had the setup was really wrong, and it took them. I mean, they had changed a drastic change in spring rates, front to rear, to get the car where it was so loose. I was sitting there watching the stands, and again, I don't want to be that little league dad or that or the young driver's dad, right? But I'm up there with the sponsor in the stands, and he used to own a Busch team, so he knows what's going on. And we're watching Dylan come through turn 10. It's like, man, it's nothing but the rear end. And we're going, oh, okay. And I'm listening to the radio, and I'm trying not to say anything because I don't want to miss the day because we got to get going.
Yeah.
So after he came, I went down as he was coming to the pits. I just came down, went to the garage. And when he came to the garage, he got out of the car for a second. I'm like, is it? He goes, it's a little bit loose. I'm like, dude, it looks horrible. So he ended up, being polite, but getting the team on the right page to make the changes. And then we got back.
Yeah, we got back to where we needed to be, and those guys at Jefferson Pits, they worked
awesome.
their butts off, and got the car back to where it needs to be. But like I said, that was their first time on that new compounded tire, and obviously it's very different than what it was before. Yeah. But we got in and we worked our way up to the top three. I think actually second at one point, close to first, and then on the last restart, in those stock cars, if somebody hits you from behind, your rear tires come up off the ground on the restart and you can't go. And so we kind of got shuffled back there when we were restarting, I think third that time. And then they called the race a little bit early due to lightning. Okay. But I think we definitely could have had a top three, maybe even a win in that race. But yeah, it was good. It was a good race. They like I said, they worked their butts off, and we got the car back to where it needs to be.
It was definitely something to put you to the test as well. So, I've been kind of following your career, over the past couple of years, and really enjoy being able to watch what you're able to do.
Great.
So this year you got Sebring coming up next.
That's right.
You got your mouth guard ready for to wear underneath that helmet.
Yeah, no, this is going to be a fun week. It really is. We were testing the Mercedes at Sebring, I think 2 weeks ago, and, we were really fast, really looking forward to it. If we can go in and back up our win at Daytona with another win, that would be absolutely awesome. And, I think we got a good shot at doing that because, like I said, I always say this, the combination of Riley Motorsports and Mercedes-AMG, that combination is just absolutely phenomenal, and it's very hard to beat them. And that's what we've proven.
Do you ever communicate with Lawson about the GT3 car or different setups?
Yeah,
even if the cars are different, they're still kind of the same platform in a sense.
Yeah, so we don't really communicate too much on setup because the cars, like you said, they're similar, but they're not exact. Most of the time I'll communicate with Lawson Aschenbach with the track conditions, and their engineer will communicate with our engineer on tire pressures, what lap times we're running relative to what we normally would be, stuff like that. And so it's really good to have another sister car in the WeatherTech series. So that way, if they have a practice before us or we have a practice before them, it kind of gives both of us a head start of all the other teams.
So, David, you have your championship trophies. How many Rolexes do you flaunt in front of Dylan saying, is this next?
That's the sad part. I have been the bridesmaid half dozen times or so. I do not have a Rolex. So when he gets his Rolex, it's going to be very painful to ask him what time it is. But proud at the same time.
No,
Uh, yeah.
that's what you're going to be having to like. Hey, I'm sneaking in as the fourth driver here.
Well, that's what I got to say. Yeah, the fourth driver, where I say, well, but where'd you finish overall? Because I've had a couple of good finishes overall at Daytona. We finished fourth one year and third another year. And third was, if you remember the year that Kevin Buckler won overall in the GT car.
Yeah.
Top 3 cars were GT. We would finish third. But during the race, we were the first one. I started the race, and I was behind J.C. France in the Fab car, Daytona Prototype, which was the hot car, one of the cars, good time. And so caution came out. He was in NASCAR 4 and did not pit. And I did, because I knew it was caution, and it was long enough. And so when I pitted, then they pitted right after that. They just missed a lap. We went back out. I changed to Johannes Van Overbeek, and he started the race in first place after the first hour of the race. So we did a really good job there. And then we were going back and forth with Buckler's car for the lead overall all night long. And then about midnight, we had a clutch slave cylinder that started taking it wouldn't release quickly because the seal was sticking. So we lost about a half second of laps. We dropped to second. And then in the morning, Johannes ran over something and cut the radiator. So we had to change the radiator, and that's what dropped us to third. But I remember before that race, there was a couple of PCA guys that wanted to do Daytona. Never done it before in their life. So they were ones that made it financially possible for us to do that. So Johannes and I, they did about a 45-minute stint each.
That's before they changed the driving standards of how much you have to drive.
A lot of track time. But the funny thing is, before the race, I go, guys, I have finished second in this race. I can't tell you how many times. Second sucks. I'm over it. We got to win this thing or nothing. So after the race, we finished third, but third overall. And they looked at me and go, like, is it okay to be happy? I'm like, yeah, it's good, but still a good finish. Still not a Rolex. But the hard part was all the Daytona prototypes and GT1s behind us got Rolexes and we didn't.
Yeah.
Like, how's that work? So it's tough, but it's okay. But I've got a few championships, and then it's but scary is I led Sebring one year. We did the Riley and Scott in 1998 at the beginning of the 12 hour. I led in Jim Matthews' Riley and Scott, the start of the race, and my fast lap was 1:57, and the P3 cars are doing that now.
Jeez.
That's just mind-boggling. So,
that is. So.
But I still got a couple of podiums at Le Mans, so I've shown those for everything.
Yeah, I think Dylan's the type. Well, it's going to be interesting because you've had multiple manufacturers now back out with the new hypercar because of the new accord they signed at Daytona to do the LMDH cars.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's what we're looking forward to. I mean, the ultimate is, we need to get Dylan with the manufacturer. My relationship with Porsche goes way back, so obviously there's some relationships there. He's driving for Mercedes. They know who he is. I did some stuff with BMW. There's a lot of folks out there, and then with the LMDH coming out in 2022, we're looking at, it's not definite yet, but we'd like to see what we'd like to do in 2021.
Yeah.
And obviously something in WeatherTech, and it depends on where we go as of what series, but if we could do a prototype, then that would certainly give the factories, he would be right in the limelight to say, look, he's in a prototype in WeatherTech, he's done factory stuff, okay, he might be a guy we could choose.
I could see another Taylor situation here.
Yep.
David Murray Racing Team. Bring Dylan up.
I could see that. That would be a lot of fun. That would be fun. I like doing that. But that's what's great now is to watch him and to help and to be part of it. And as we go through this whole process from go-karts to where he is now, I play less and less of a role. And talking about with him and helping coach or whatever. But at this point, I don't really have to do a lot of coaching. And like I said, there may be once in a while where something happens where, okay, I couldn't get around this guy. How do I get around the guy? And just like Dylan said, it comes from doing laps at that track.
Exactly.
And so he referenced Road America. Well, that only came because I've raced Road America for 30 years. And so I understand where at that track it's easier or harder to pass and what the people are going to do around you. So just like I said, just cuts the learning curve down. Not that he can't figure it out, but it just might take him, a little bug in his ear. He goes, okay, I know what's probably going to happen. I'll watch that. and be able to take advantage of it this race as opposed to waiting for 3 more years to go, oh, you know what? I get it now.
No, exactly. So, guys, I really appreciate your time today. Dylan, good luck at Sebring next week.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I want you guys to take this time to, shout out whoever you need to shout out. Dylan, give your social media so people can come follow you, know where to catch you at. For David, I know there's David Murry Track Days, which is a great event that's held at the most amazing tracks in this country. So let us know about that, and go, guys. This is your time.
Yeah. But basically, you go to find out anything about either one of us, davidmurray.com, M-U-R-R-Y, no A, and then Dylan's website's on that, or Dylan Murray, D-Y-L-A-N-M-U-R-R-Y, dylanmurray.com. But and you can find track days there, all the other stuff too. But his sponsor, Wins, and Jim Cox.
Yeah. Wins has been a part of our team ever since we got the Mercedes, and they've been absolutely fantastic to work with. High Point University from last year was excellent to work with, and it's starting to look like maybe we'll have them on board again this year for Virginia. But it's really been a fantastic run with Wins and High Point University. But like we were saying back before, Jim Cox, I owe Jim Cox the world. He was the one that gave me my break, and his wife Wendy as well.
Yeah.
They
I got a story for that.
Yeah. So actually, when going back to the story of Daytona, when I drove with my dad and Jim in the Porsche, so Jim was like, he was telling Wendy, his wife, about, hey, maybe I think I'll let Dylan drive with me and blah, blah, blah. And
he was 17 at the time.
Yeah, I was 17 at the time. And Wendy looks at Jim, and she didn't say this around us. She said it to Jim in private. Jim, you're going to spend how much money, and you're going to let a 17-year-old kid drive your car? And so we went out, and then after the race, she was all happy and such. She's like, oh, okay, I think that's okay now.
Yeah, she was.
But the two of them have been absolutely fantastic to my career, and like I said, they were the guys that gave me my first breakthrough in IMSA racing, and really, it's really been, it's great to work with somebody that you enjoy being around, because they are super nice people. If you guys are ever at the track and want to come up and say hi, I'm sure that they are more than willing to talk, and just super nice, down to earth people.
Genuine people, like I said, it could have gone either way. And I keep telling Jim, thank you, and he goes, oh, it worked out good, because that way he doesn't spend $1 gazillion for an established pro driver.
Yeah.
But I said, and it could have been the other way around. It could have been, what if Dylan wasn't that guy? I mean, how many diamonds in the rough are there?
Exactly.
And so to actually take that opportunity, and then for us to see it pay back for Jim in 3 wins so far, it's like, and he's been closing the deal, so he's a major part of it. And I think that gives Jim a lot of joy, Jim and Wendy both, a lot of joy to know that while now it works out because Dylan's as good as it needs to be, it's also they were part of, they were responsible for him giving him an opportunity to be able to showcase his talent and grow as a sport.
All right, Dylan, what's your social media so people can come check you out and follow you?
My social media on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat is at Dylan K. Murray. And you guys, if you follow me, I got some pretty cool stuff on there. So you got to make sure you go on and follow me. Latest news, I actually just announced something on there, but I'll make you go follow me to find out what that new news is. All right, so at Dylan K. Murray, go hit me up, man.
There you go. All right, guys, this is the Uber to Pits podcast. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Uber to the Pits. We are trying to work and build our YouTube channel as well, so go check us out there. David, Dylan, thank you so much for joining us today.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it very much. I enjoyed it. Great,
guys.
Great
go on there, check it out, and we'll see you next week.
Let us know we can watch it.